Hi, Tim Sells here. In this video series, I'm talking about what prevents somebody from becoming a rep. And this particular one has to do with not looking at reality, number 8 in the series. And what this all came about, or how this came about, was why isn't network marketing popular in the media? And this video, I'm going to be talking about intentional cultural devolution. All right. And we didn't even know what was occurring. So the main idea here is that this is a intentional cultural tearing up of, all right? And it was done extremely covertly. And I want to walk you through a bit of the story of it. If you remember a couple of videos back, there was a gentleman who went through unknowing subject of U.S. Army experiment. And it was a brainwashing operation. And he said in the video, it's a great brainwashing process of changing the perception of reality of every American to such an extent no one is able to come to a sensible conclusion in the interests of defending themselves, their family, their community, and their country. All right, so I put this video where it was for a reason. I knew that I would be coming back to this because this is going to be quite an interesting, let's just say that I worked a whole lot and a long time on this video. And so I think it's going to be really good and you're going to get a lot out of it. So just a quick recap in this kind of series of videos. The number 4 video was Federal banks control all but 7 countries. And I outlined it making basically only statements from presidents as well as senators or congressmen or women. All right. And then the next one was agenda is the one world government. Number 6 is the propaganda used to get the public's buy-in. And then confused political ideologies to distract. In other words, when you go communism, socialism, capitalism, all these different things, I could select multiple presidents who were in each of these categories. And so it didn't make any sense. Some of them were Democratic, but they were right-wing, blah, blah, blah. So I finally figured out that the whole thing was really too confused. And so that there's no reason that even needs to be a central point. And then this one is the cultural devolution. All right, so these are our founding fathers, if you will, the cultural education fathers. So they basically were studying it. There's Marx, Engles, and Lenin, right? So those are going to be the 3 figureheads that began it all. And just so that everybody kind of understands the hidden history of communism, founding tyrants, okay? So comrades Marx and Engles advocated war, slavery, racism, ethnic hatred, and genocide. They mocked justice, freedom, democracy, and equality, expressing contempt for the poor, workers, farmers, and moderates. Okay, so that kind of gives you an idea that, you know, they were very pro-genocide. They were not the, in other words, a lot of times when someone lives and they write a book and they're noted and held up, but using this author took only their writings and made a book out of it about what they did, okay, and what they were pro and what not. And I was a bit surprised, and maybe you would be a bit surprised that currently we have, I think it's over now, but 70 Socialist Party and Communist Party members inside of our Congress or Senate. Okay, and you're welcome to freeze it and take a look at all the names. These are all of the House members, Congress, and these senators and so forth. So you're welcome to take a look at that. And I do recommend that, you know, look in your state and see whether or not you have some, perhaps. All right, so here's Karl Marx, and there is a lot of discussion about people who have that, okay? The hidden hand is what it's called. So the idea is that they do things well, good for people in this hand, but the other hand is the hidden hand where they're actually tearing it down. So they're in there, they're pretending to be of a certain, uniform color. You can just imagine on a football team or a basketball team or something like that, where somebody there is getting paid by the opposing team in order to, and he's the guy that scores, but yet he also fumbles the ball right in the last minute or something like that. Okay, so there's, and then other people say there's nothing to it, but I find across history there is a lot of that with bad people. Okay, so people who have that evil intent. There are some that are good. Right, so I'm not sure. All right, and then so this is Frederick Engles, and he was pretty much the financier of our man Karl Marx. All right, and look at the dates. Okay, so he died in 1845. So we're going back to there where he wrote the manifesto, Communist Manifesto. So there's three main parts that I'm going to be walking into. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about this other than what I already talked about, which is Communist Party USA. I'm going to talk about quite a bit about the Fabian Society and the Frankfurt School, right? And so his works moves up all the way through, and it goes genealogy to genealogy, and it multiplied as to where it all was coming from. This is the Fabian Socialist group. They started in 1884. One of their primary people was George Bernard Shaw. He was a artist, if you will. He wrote plays and various different things, very good at it. At the time, he was one of the best. But he had a philosophy, and he was part of the Fabian Society. And like I said, most of these people, they had the same viewpoints as these, because the logic that was here ended up going up the tree to wherever it went from there. All right, so both had felt as though that genocide was essential. In other words, people think that, I get the idea of communism, so everybody works to the level that they can work, and then everybody shares in the big pie of money. That's not the way that they really saw it. It was if you didn't work to a certain degree, then they killed you. So it's slavery, and if you're not going to slave, then they're going to kill you. Okay, so that was kind of the idea, and I found it amusing because it's not the idea that I think people have about it. All right, so now we move over to the Frankfurt School, and this was about 1924. And so what they were trying to do here was in Britain. So they were sitting there, and I like to kind of view this as a story. I think people understand things better. So you can just imagine that there's a group of people who get together and they create this organization called the Fabian Society. If you look at their logo, what you see is that you see a wolf in sheep's clothing. So right off the bat, you know that they're covertly going about something. And they said, we can't really get our government to take our idea. We're too small. That's really the idea. So how could we do it? Okay, so the Fabian Society derives its name from the Roman general Quintus Fabius. Strategy of delaying attacks on the enemy until the exact right moment, then striking hard. So that's where the name came from. So you can kind of get an idea of what their plan would be. And they executed it extremely well. I don't speak very much French, and so you're welcome to pronounce that yourself. But it's quoted from the Fabian Society. Until now, and this is quite a while back, so this was probably in 1800s, early 1800s or so, that this man quoted this, or stated this. Until now, nations were killed by conquest, that is, by invasion. But here, an important question arises. Can a nation not die on its own soil without resettlement or invasion by allowing the flies of decomposition to corrupt to the very core, those original and constituent principles which make it what it is. And constituent here means an essential part, component, or element. Okay, so the flies of decomposition, to corrupt it. So they quote that in the Fabian Society, and we will see how that lays out. Okay, so here are the original group from the Fabian Society and some others who started out and created Institute of Social Research at Frankfurt School. Okay, and this was in Germany. Marxism as a political structure was not popular. They had to be covert. So they couldn't come out and say, we're going to take down Britain or we're going to take down Germany or anything like that. It just had to be designed in such a way that it would be the flies of decomposition. Fabian Tactics were used to implement socialism in Britain. In 1932, you kind of see, like 10 years later or so, 11 years, Hitler in power, many Fabian Society members fled to America and migrated into major universities, Columbia, Princeton, Brandeis, and that's in Massachusetts, and California at Berkeley. Used their tactics in America. Okay, so everything that I'm going to show you is what they were doing in Britain, and then they came to the United States because of Hitler, and then they got into the schools. And if you can just imagine if the professor, which is a very admired person, if you can think about it from the school student's standpoint, they're dependent on that teacher grades, giving him a grade and passing. But also it's a high altitude from the student's position as listening to them because they know all, right? And so if those kinds of concepts were coming down, then it would cause that person to think that way. And that, in essence, is a form of brainwashing. Here are their plans: to drive Marxism covertly into culture through flies of decomposition. Did it succeed or fail? Remember, this is way back in the 20s, 30s, okay, of when they started this. And so let's see if it worked. So number one was racism offenses. And so what this really is an idea of is that they knew that America was a country of immigrants. And so a lot of different colors were there, and so they could take advantage of that and pit one against another, right? And so you can see this, maybe you can see this, but it's basically that they're going to show something here. This is our focus, the good news, okay? But at the same time, they're seeing hate crime, Islamophobia, racism is up. And then over here is hatred for people on grounds of their gender, up. Hatred against those of different sexual preferences, up. Hate crimes on religion, up. Hate crimes against the disabled, up. Okay? So there's this background of this hate crime going on. Number two, so these are in essence like pillars or planks or columns or whatever you want to call them, but these were the things that they had written up back at the Frankfurt School and then brought to America. So continual change. Change is a good thing, right? So to create confusion and to follow agenda. It is developing, increasing, and pretty much regular. Change is always, change is a way of life, not a burden. Okay, so that's the concept that they wanted to get into your mind. And so that you would always be looking at change as a good thing. But is it? So let's say that you have like a really, really good policy. Let's say, if you've been watching my videos, you know that the pipeline is all there has ever been in order to acquire an employee or a rep or a customer or a vote or a congregation in a church or even to bring people to college. The pipeline is all there is. You generate a lead, you set an appointment for them to see a presentation, you follow up, and they either say yes, no, or they need more information. Okay? So that policy doesn't need to change. But this idea suggests that it's always good to change. What about marriage? It's time to change, you know. I want to get a divorce and do something else, right? So that kind of destroys some family, right? And so how about the kids? How about your ethics level? Well, you know what? Maybe you do need to change. Maybe not. So those are some of the ideas that you know, even though this sounds good, it might not be good. You'd have to evaluate it. Number 3 was the teaching of sex and homosexuality to children. All right. And so Chicago Board of Education okays kindergarten sex ed. Bill mandating sex education in Washington schools passes Senate. Parents angry about inappropriate sex education at elite New York schools. Schools may be forced to teach children about porn and sexting, reports suggest. This is why young children need to explore gender identity in the classroom. Okay, so I'm just using local news to show this. That's all I'm trying to do here. And so it's definitely something that I wouldn't have believed in my lifetime. Undermining of schools and teachers. Okay, so you can't see what's going on here, but it's teacher fired for breaking up school fight with a broom. So in other words, undermining of schools and teachers. Seems contradictory if the whole idea is for them to, for them to be able to brainwash you, you'd have to respect them. But at the same time, they needed to undermine schools and teachers to give them less power. And maybe it was so that stronger government can come in and then overturn or control all of it. Huge immigration to destroy identity. Okay, so like I was listening to something the other day where it was $25,000 to $50,000 is what it cost every taxpayer for every immigrant that crosses the border. And so there's a difference between people flooding through, let's say Mexico or wherever they're coming in from, and without having to say, hey, here I've got a job, or I am a trained construction worker, I'm a trained this, I'm a trained that. And so they go through a period of time. And that's the way that it started in immigration in America. In other words, there had to be something. You had to have a skill. Okay, so and you can imagine how it kind of destroys immigration. So imagine that we have Constitution in the United States, whatever country you're in, you may have a similar thing. And somebody comes in from another country because they want the land of the free, they want the opportunity that's there, but yet they don't know the Constitution. They don't know the Bill of Rights. They don't know those things, and so they can't even appreciate them. They can't hold elected officials accountable to those things. Okay? Number 6 is promotion of excess drinking. That was one of their ideas. And, you know, you can see this guy in a convenience store or something like that. Guy's passed out. This is an 8-year-old kid, drunk, right? This guy here, I just couldn't help it. This guy, his friend, is holding a hot dog up in the air in his mouth, and he has a sword. And he was a little low, and he cut his nose off. So I was like, this is the crazy things that happened. But, you know, and I'm not judging anybody on anything. I'm just finding it interesting that this was something that was written in the 20s or 30s, 1920s or 30s, and it's very prevalent. And I know you can't see this, but it's an empty church. There's one person sitting in here emptying the churches. And I'll mention in a minute why. Number 8 is unreliable legal system with bias against victims of crime. Being ethical and doing the right thing isn't rewarded. So they're rewarding the criminal instead of rewarding the person who is doing well, or doing the things right. So Must reads, a wealthy teen was cleared in South LA, killing. Critics say his race and privilege helped him win. Do you see how that creates that antagonism and that fight? 5 famous cases that prove getting away with murder isn't so hard. A man accused of raping 3 children in a week was released on bail twice by the same judge. See what I mean? Like, this is doing it. It's kind of making you feel like, well, man, it does mean I might as well be a criminal, right? Like, that's what it does, because they're rewarding the criminal. Dependency on the state or state benefits. Make as much money sitting at home and not working. And I was at a restaurant and at one of my favorite places at Sundance Mountain Resort. And I was talking, and the lady was running around like crazy, the waitress, and she says, "I'm so sorry, we're behind, or something like that. We have less staff or something due to COVID." And so I got chatting with her and stuff like that, and I said, "Are you guys hiring more people?" And she says, "We can't find anybody. They're sitting at home taking their checks from the government." And I couldn't help but think right then at that moment, I'm like, wow, that could be very well the beginning of state benefits where they get cushiony. So why not just sit home and get paid? Okay. Control and dumbing down of media. All right. And so why public schools and the mainstream media dumb us down. Okay. I'm going to talk about this a little bit here. So this was a school in California, and you can see here you have the Antifa sign, you have over here Mao, you have just various different aspects in this room, and this gentleman is being interviewed, and he doesn't know he's being interviewed by Project Veritas. So, like, when there's a right-wing rally and stuff, then we will create an opposition to that. Yeah. And so it's a very interesting thing. He's pro-Antifa, high school teacher in California, admits communist indoctrination of students. Quote, "I have 180 days to turn them into revolutionaries." In other words, a communist. Who will fight? That would be the revolutionaries. Other teachers on the same page. There is a reason why these kids are becoming further left. Okay, so that's what he said. And then I just have to have you hear this lady. I cannot find her name, but she is a hero. All right, and so if you know her, tell her it was epic. All right, so watch this quick clip.
The second thing is, the reason why my daughter is standing behind me is because my job as her parent is to protect her from anybody that has ill will towards her. So being that this is her first year at this high school that is world renowned and everybody knows about this school, it's so perfect and everybody does everything right. The first time my daughter tells me, and she goes against my wishes to come out of a classroom that's disruptive to her well-being, I have an issue. I am very articulate. My children are very well read. They speak their opinion. They make sure that they are clear in what they do and do not like. And for the fact that my 17-year-old daughter had to come to me and said, "Mom, you don't understand. Let me explain." This means that in 2 weeks, in 13 days, he was allowed to change my daughter's mind about some fascist crap that y'all have let in this school. I'm tired. This is ridiculous. I'm from Texas. So this don't go on in Texas. This does not go on in Texas. They're 2 grades higher than California, period. So to think that my very sound-minded daughter would go against me and my wishes and our values in our home to be able to go and support this man, and he is putting her in harm's way, what the hell are y'all doing? I'm tired. How long does it have to go on before somebody says something? How long? How long? What are you going to do? That's the question. Get him out of here. We don't care about this boy. He got to go.
So don't mess with Momma Bear, and definitely not one from Texas. So she's incredible. Just absolutely love her spirit. And the more people that we get to come to those meetings at the school boards, the better of a country we're going to have. All right. So we need patriots there fighting for it. All right. So let me move to the media portion of what I was just describing. And that is that, so the dumbing down of would be, how would you dumb it down? Well, there's 6 corporations that control almost all the media. It's over 90%, and it's growing in terms of percentages. Okay. So, this right here is Summer Redstone, and these are all the media stations that he owns. Here's the print ones, here's the internet ones, here's the video games ones. Okay, so that's a whole lot of control, and it's about 4.6 billion when this was stated. This is Disney. This is National Amusements, and then this is Disney. And these are all of their assets, ABC, of course, Disney, Family, Television Group, ABC. That's a military station. You know, like all of that is just under one umbrella. Okay, so they can write, let's say, history how they want to. So you can see, like, there's a lot of brand names here that I see that I would not have known that was all under one umbrella. And then this is News Corp, Robert Murdoch. And that's all of the Fox stations, so forth. Okay, so you can see though, there's one more, and this is Sony and all of theirs. So now you can see that there's this consolidation, almost monopoly, where they really control the narrative. A few videos back, I told you that the whole idea is attention. And so if I can get you to look at this soccer ball, then I've got your attention. And if it's consolidated where all of these different platforms, if you don't feel like watching the news and then you pick up a video game and start playing it, you could be very well on the same channel, right? With the same script. And if these people got together and agreed on something like one of the groups that I've shown you, Bilderberg groups or the World Economic Forum or any of the United Nations kind of things where they have these roundtables for the billionaires, then you can understand how they could come to an agreement about the narrative and they would be able to push it out. Okay, so it's all about that attention. That is the commodity. All right, so number 11 is encouraging the breakdown of the family. And here you see the fabric behind. You've got the mother and child over here and the dad over here, taking it apart. Death of marriage in the United States. You can see this in the 1930s, 1929. It was up around probably 96%, 97%, and now it's down to 59%. Okay, that stay together. Okay, so there's subcategories within this one of how to break down the family. Exploit Freud's, he was a psychologist, idea of pansexualism. And so that has to do with, I don't know, in my day they would call it bisexual. I guess pansexualism is the way that he described it then. The search for pleasure and exploitation of the differences between the sexes, the overthrowing of traditional relationships between men and women, attack the authority of the father, deny the specific roles of father and mother. Okay, so they were trying to give that to the school. I know that part. You can kind of see that, you know, you kind of think, oh, well, it just happened, right? But you never think, was there a cause point? Was there somebody's agenda pushing this? Is the reason that the divorce happened, was it because of what's on television, what's on the internet, what's being communicated by various different organizations and different people? And you may think that, oh, well, I'm reading Rolling Stones and they have some article, or maybe there's soap operas or something like that, and the show is all about this woman who is committing adultery and things like that. And so she goes out and she does something in real life, plays out what she saw in the film. So that kind of gives you the idea of how this stuff permeates and is like flies decomposing society. Encouraging the breakdown of the family. This is still the same one, but this one has abolished differences in education of boys and girls. And so I saw this book, No Difference Between Us. And, you know, like, and I don't know, I've got two boys, and I remember there was a girl named Trinity, and she was young. She was a friend of ours, as a daughter of a friend of ours. And she's playing with dolls and everything and handed it to one of my kids. And my kid's like, what? Just tosses it, you know? And so I could care less about what toys are. But if there is an agenda, because boys are different than girls, right? Not better than, not less than. They're just different, okay? That's just fact, okay? And then remove families of their rights to primary educators of their children. This was written back in the 1920s, okay? And this is the first time I've ever actually seen it going on, but it had been going on for a long, long time. It was just these slight, gradual increases at the Board of Education. Little bit by little bit, by little bit. I'm going to do a video on education and the intentional dumbing down of. In fact, I've got the book here on my desk because it's something that I reference quite often. This is really big. It's somebody who is inside the Department of Education, and she copied and documented everything and how it all went down and who was behind it. And of course, Rockefeller was a part of it, and Carnegie. So remove families of their rights to primary education of their children. Well, that's interesting. If they can, you got to really think about this. If somebody gives me a right, then they can take my right, right? But they didn't get that. That's not where you get your rights from. If you'll remember the hierarchy that I talked about in other videos, God, our creator, whatever you view, created man or woman. Okay? And man or woman has rights. And then below that, man or woman creates government to govern the people the way the people want to be governed. And so the government doesn't give you rights. No, you give them rights. And so the very idea would be brainwashing if they told you don't have the right, okay? Because, no. You don't have the right to tell me I don't have the right. That's the way it really ought to be. And if people really knew the Constitution, if they really knew the Bill of Rights, they would back these people up. Say, no, what are you talking about, right? So that's the problem, that we don't actually know that stuff. Here, this gentleman, he serves as parliamentary under Secretary of State for Business and Industry since 2019. Now, this is over in the UK. And he made this statement. He says, children can overrule their own parents to get the COVID jab. And he goes on and on about it. He's talking about 12 to 15 years old. Well, that's a long, long way. That's a long shot, right? Like, no, that's not true. How could that be true? But it is true if you take a look at what I was talking about is remove families of their rights to primary educators of their children. And so until they're of legal age, It is the parents' rights, but they're trying to take them away from us. All right? The government wants to be the parent and the only thing you worship. So that's what the end goal is. The reason that they want to take away religion is because if you have a higher calling than government, they don't like that. They want you to bow to the toes of the king or whatever it is. Okay? That's the only way that communism would work. Number 12 is the feminization of the male. Abolish all forms of male dominance. In other words, if you can just think about throughout history, you would have men going off to wars, women staying with the kids. Okay? And so they were the dominant. They were the ones that went out and hunted and brought back food. The wife didn't have a lesser job. If you ask me, anytime my wife has me take care of the kids, I just get more and more and more thankful for my wife. Right? Because it is a big job. And so I would never think that it's less than. So I just want to make sure you guys knew where I stand. I think you do, but I have tremendous admiration for what women do. All right. But the idea of feminization, and many reports have said that some of the food supply, the soy that's in food, is causing man boobs in boys. There's fluoride in the drinking water. It creates docile people, not just males, but docile. But the soy is estrogen based. And so you would have a problem with that one with boys. Okay. So that would contribute to the feminization. Declare women as oppressed, men as oppressors. So they're pitting men against women. So you can see that in the wage wars and the conversations about that. And so people get all upset and they start fighting each other. Financial inequality. Okay? All right. And so the last one here is remove history. And in the book 1984 by George Orwell, he said, every record has been destroyed or falsified, every book rewritten, every picture has been repainted, every statue and street building has been renamed, every date has been altered. And the process is continuing day by day and minute by minute. History has stopped. Nothing exists except an endless present in which the party is always right. And so he happens to work in the truth ministry in his position. So this was a fiction book, but he was part of the Fabian Society. And he was their public relations person who would put out press releases and various different things. And he left it and he wrote several books, some of them fiction, some of them nonfiction. And he's basically, he could see what they were planning and knew what would go down if it succeeded. And if it succeeded, by 1984, which was the 100-year anniversary of the Fabian Society, then they would be like, then this outlook of what he was viewing would be what would happen. They would destroy history. They would change the names. The good things would be bad things and bad things would become good things. And you wouldn't be able to differentiate between them. And so I consider that quite a quote when last year we saw statues being pulled down to remove history. And so then men, if they were warriors, they never happened. Men never happened, right? Strong men. And I don't believe that it is a threat to society to have strong leaders of both kinds. I think it's very necessary to be the example in society. Okay, so my view. These are written in the 1920s. Did they succeed? In my view, they totally succeed. Beyond my wildest imaginations. If I had read that thing back when I was in high school, I would have laughed. And that was in the 70s. Attention is the primary commodity. Okay, so we got to go back to that because I don't want to leave you guys in a depressed state, which is if this is the focus and now you know what they're doing, then they're no longer covert. Now you can look at it. You can go to that school board meeting and you can be like that Momma Bear who was at the school board and really, really ticked off, as we all should be. She set a precedence, in my view, that, like I would be professional, whatever meeting I ever went to, and, I would talk to them. I certainly am going to look at every school book. I have questioned every single teacher to quite a degree as I am determining the school. And all of these things, because us not being responsible for it is what's the cause. What is what allowed it to succeed. Us handing off our kids and driving off to work is the reason we weren't involved. And so that's where the problem came in. Nearly everything that comes from the media, here's the way that I view it. Now that I know it's all owned, because of the propaganda video that I showed you, where there is no law that we can sue them for libel. We can't sue them for almost anything because they are allowed to do propaganda. It's in the law, so they can lie. If they promote it, watch out. If they despise it, become interested in it. It's probably a good thing, right? And so now you can see why we won't be popular in the media. And I'm quite proud of that. It doesn't bother me. I know that we are either not even essential to them or that we are an enemy to them. And that's why they attack us. And so that actually makes me very proud. All right, so my experience, just in terms of how things work, and this is based upon my upbringing, this is based upon my military experience. For 13 years, I was U.S. Navy Special Operations. And then also, I've been in network marketing for 32 years. I've made many, many millions of dollars. I built sales teams just in the first 7 years of the new company that I built. I built 57 million. I didn't build them. They built themselves. I just provided information, provided training. So 57 people had earned $1 million. 5,401 had earned $250,000 in a 7-year period of time. And so leadership does matter. Examples do matter. And so when society works best, in my opinion, when people who work hard are rewarded. Okay? That always wins. When they get the ribbons on their chest, when they get the trophy, when they get the acknowledgement from the pastor or the jiu-jitsu, when they get a stripe on their belt, when they work hard. When people fail, it hurts, but makes them think of solutions. This makes them better. The idea that everybody gets a trophy because you paid the money and you bought the uniform, that doesn't work. I was listening to a podcast or an interview, and they were talking about how the football team back when in their day, when they lost and the bus was taking them back to their hometown, that everybody had to exercise the entire trip back because they lost. That's punishment for losing. In the military, we do the same thing. You can't imagine how many push-ups we did. And I have my son, 10 years old. He has the job of feeding the dogs. 2 dogs, 2 cats. And he has to feed them before he starts on his video games. And so if he doesn't, he and I worked about it. I said, okay, so buddy, if you forget about it, then what do you think you should do in response? Because the dogs are hungry. And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, what would make it up? He goes, well, I could feed them more. And I go, nah, that's not really the idea. So what if we just did something where you had to do burpees or something like that? He goes, okay. I said, all right, what do you think it would be a good way to do it? And he says, I don't know. I said, all right, so how about 5 the first time? If you forget again, it's 10 burpees. And if you forget again, it's 15, and so on. And he goes, it'd probably take me to about 20 before I would never forget. Bingo. You see what I mean? In other words, when people fail, it hurts, but makes them think of solutions. This makes them better. And schools taught you that failure was horrific. And in network marketing, I fail to this day 1 out of every 7 times I fail. Okay, so it's horrible statistics. Before I was real knowledgeable and knew the things that you've seen on this channel, it was 1 in 10. When I first started, it was 1 in 20. So I got better to the degree of that. Why? Because failing hurt. If you do not have the failure, then you do not ponder. You do not say, wow, how do I get better at this? How do I become really, really good at this? And if you become good in network marketing, you can make a killing. Okay? But the only way you make a killing is if your people succeed. And that drives us to become leaders in it. When people become criminals, they are not rewarded. Okay, so when you see them in the spotlight, I remember somebody saying that some assassination occurred because the person wanted publicity of being the one who killed that person. Right? Then they should never be promoted, never be rewarded whatsoever. Promoted meaning in the propaganda. Okay, but you see criminals, the focus is criminals. The attention is on criminals. And it will create a more criminal society because the attention is on it. Especially when they see that you get away with it. And finally, when society loses their fundamental responsibility to produce, they desire to become a slave. And, all right, I don't know why. Aaron's probably going to be like, oh man, you're telling that story. So we were in here and I had 2 kittens, Ash and Coco. And Ash is just a hunter, okay? And so there were mice in one of the other buildings. And so Ash would come out with a mouse. And Coco would sit there and look at him. And every time Coco went and did it, the mouse would get away. And I'll never forget this one time where the mouse had gotten away and Ash just sat there and waited. He just sat there and waited for Coco to go and find him again. And he didn't. So Ash went and got him and didn't share anything with him. And I remember laughing so hard because that to me is the only way that society can really build. If Ash wanted to share it, he could. And that is, in my opinion, in America, I don't know other countries, but I know that there is tremendous drive in people in America to help others. But when a group gets together and then tries to pass a law that makes people take money from people who have been productive, then it creates a grudge. It's not, no, that's not the way it should work at all. Okay, because we did try and failed. We did come up with solutions. And so that's the reason that it is more fair this way. Okay, so I think that's it. This is why I love network marketing. I've said it in other videos. I have probably donated in the whole time I've been in network marketing. I probably donated about 40% of all the money I've earned, maybe 35%. Okay, and I'm talking about after taxes. And so I'm not doing that in any kind of a way to boast, but I'm trying to show you that is the way it should work. Okay, so if we were on an island and there's just 2 of us, and maybe I'm a little bit better at fishing, let's say, and the other person on the island, not very good at fishing, but boy, can he cook. Okay, I'm going to share that, and we're going to create an exchange there. But if he demands me, if he creates a law for me to share, and then there's 50 other people who come on, and this is not a hypothetical. I was on a boat with a bunch of Navy divers, and me and this other guy named Bam Bam, that's his nickname, and he and I, every time we went down to go get lobster, we just had the technique down. And the whole thing was, you eat what you kill, right? So that was the idea. And when we came up one time and we had got 32 lobster, the other guys decided right then and there on the spot that we would split all lobsters equally. Well, all the other teams only got 3 total. And Bam Bam and I look at each other and like, how is that fair? Right? What are you talking about? And so I love that in network marketing, I can train. That is where my charity really comes in. Okay? Because I benefit, not as much as they, but I benefit when they succeed. I don't believe there's a better return on investment than training people. And so that is where, in my opinion, network marketing shines above all others. So I appreciate you watching. I've got a Telegram channel where I put in other content having to do with these subjects as well as additional training things. I do recommend that you join that channel. I'll put it down in the description down below. Also, if you please comment on this video and let me know what you think about it. It assists in the algorithm and so forth. And I just also want to know how you view this. I've said a lot of things. It's just my viewpoints on them. But all of those other things that actually did happen, we see it all across. And so, but I want to see your opinion on how that all happened. And so also give me a thumbs up, please. Thank you so much.